What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are so excited. I hope you are pumped right now for the most action-packed hour you have ever received in your entire life. Why? Because this hour got it all, baby. Hope, inspiration, motivation, encouragement, empowerment, the whole nine, baby. So grab a chair, pull up a couple shots, let your hair down, and kick those shoes off, and get ready to receive the most jam-packed hour you have ever received in your entire life, baby. Let's go! Woo!
Joseph JAFFE. Why does that name sound so suspiciously familiar? Maybe because your secret screen name is Not Famous for You? What do you mean by not famous for you, Joseph? Chris Hansen here of Hansen vs. Predators. To catch a predator and have a seat with Chris Hansen. Now, Joseph JAFFE, I'm going to need you to have a seat right over there. I see some suspicious activity. Something about a television show, doing interviews, 200 guests, something like that. But Joseph, you are not famous. And the people on your show, well, they're not infamous like my shows. But remember, JAFFE is not famous. So let's keep it that way. I'll be watching and listening. Behave.
There was one guy I was dealing with getting a little bit pissy over the kid interrupting the call thing, and I'm like, appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
My bad. Please continue. It's very alliterative.
They are going to be the ones powering the experiences that every customer has.
Preference has power. I'm pretty sure Cato would say to me when I do every show, stop.
I think he would.
Those pieces are popping. Wait till you get the invoice.
Here. I have a question. When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you laughed?
Right now. I don't want to dance with you.
When's the last time you flew a kite?
Toasted Oreo.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How did I do that?
insane. You're insane.
Well, welcome everybody to another evening of late night JAFFE. It is Thursday night. It is 9 o'clock, and it is time for the man that put the OG into content. The G is actually silent. It's actually Cogntent. Something like that. It's like a bad dad joke. Well, I hope you are well, and I am truly excited for tonight's show. I'm also excited that it is Happy Mother-in-Law's Day. That, I believe, is grammatically what they call an oxymoron or a contradiction or a transferred epithet. It's one of the above, but I am happy because I do love my mother-in-law, and I really hope she's not watching right now because she will hate the fact that I just put this live on the streaming waves of the internets. But happy Mother-in-Law's Day, Jan, Auntie Jan, Granny Jan. Hope you are having a great day. And we love you. We love our mother-in-laws. How many mother-in-laws do you get in your lifetime? Maybe 2 or 3. So take advantage of them and truly savor them. Well, I'm going to savor tonight's guest, Mr. Robert Rose. He's the chief troublemaker. He's a chief troublemaker. I was the chief interrupter once of Crayon, but I've met some adjunct troublemakers. I've met some aspiring troublemakers, but I've never met the chief troublemaker. So Robert is coming on the show, and we will celebrate him big time. And if technology works out in our favor, we will have the fabulous Kloud Nimbus performing for us. Sometimes technology doesn't always work out, but we hope she will be with us. One thing that I can tell you will work out is our soliloquy, which you have to read this really carefully, is actually called, and of course is going to be connected with our conversation. It is called Social versus Media. Now, my guest tonight, the very famous and humble Robert Rose, has teed up a topic. I'll explain why humble later. Has teed up a topic that I'm super passionate about. And so in this soliloquy, I'd like to set him up and let's see where the conversation goes. This is a rough description of a part of my Join the Conversation keynote, which I would give from circa 2007 onwards. It was, of course, loosely based on my second book of the same name. Now, television personality Ernie Kovacs from the 50s once said, television, a so-called medium because it is neither rare nor well done. Media comes from the word medium. It is oil, as in snake oil, as in the wares of a snake oil salesman. Social, on the other hand, is what humans do. They socialize, they connect, they interact, they talk, converse, discuss, or even debate. It is more precious than food. It is water. Without it, we cannot survive for long. And so there you have it. Oil and water, they do not mix. They do not go together. And yet we put them together. Social and media to develop the phrase we all know and love, or love to hate, social media. I would then display the image that you see in front of you, which interestingly enough, I pulled from a guest lecture at NYU, where I now teach, featuring my impressive model, my wife, enthralled in a deep and meaningful conversation with a sneaker. Now, I don't want to have a conversation with a shoe. I don't want to have a conversation with a can of soda. And yet the can of soda wants me to follow them on Twitter, and the shoe wants me to like them on Facebook. I don't want a conversation or relationship with a shoe. I want a relationship with the people behind the shoe, the people who designed the shoe, the people who wear the shoe. So that was my spiel then. And to be honest, it really hasn't changed 14 years later. I believe as strongly, if not stronger, in the power of what I call non-media. Not earned media, not paid media, not even owned media. Non-media, peer-to-peer, human to human. So it's time to put the social back into media. It's time to put the social back into social media. It's time for us to reclaim social media, and in doing so, who knows, we might just save social media and most certainly end up saving ourselves. Well, I cannot wait to hear what he has to say. And just as a reminder, if you are looking for your JAFFE coin, you can get it right now. This QR code is live, but only from 9 to 10 Eastern Time on October 28th, which of course is right now. So you have about 52 minutes to point your phone towards that QR code and get yourself a JAFFE coin. It is a prize of the streaming economy of the power of live. But enough about freebies. You're about to get the biggest freebie, because you're about to get pearls of wisdom from Dr. Robert Rose. I just elevated him. Why not? To become a doctor. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Robert Rose is a sought-after consultant, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and one of the world's most recognized experts in digital content strategy and marketing. Robert is the author of 3 best-selling books, including Killing Marketing, written with his friend and podcast co-host, Joe Pulizzi. See, I was thinking of something snappy to say, and I got tongue-tied. For more than 10 years, Robert and his firm, The Cogntent Advisory, have worked with more than 500 companies, including 15 of the Fortune 100. He has provided strategic marketing advice and counsel for global brands such as Facebook. They sure as hell could use his advice right now. Salesforce, NASA, CVS Health, McCormick Spices, HP, Microsoft, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. His podcast, This Old Marketing, I wonder if that is a transferred epithet, with Joe Pulizzi, has been downloaded millions of times in more than 100 countries. Let's bring him onto the show. Mr. Robert Rose, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, my friend. It is fantastic to be here. A total delight. And I'm so glad that I could get the promotion from adjunct troublemaker to doctor literally in one soliloquy. I mean, that's come on. How much better can my evening get?
You know what? It is very deliberate, I think, the fact that I even did that, because I'm going to go straight into the quote of the day, which I deliberately found for you. And this is the quote: "Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it." And here's the grand reveal who actually said this. You'll never guess. Don't try. It was actually Abraham Lincoln. Can you
I
believe
had
it?
heard it was Justin Timberlake, but yeah, okay, I believe that.
Abraham Lincoln. There's the photo, and
Yeah,
there's the name. So it has to be true, right?
must be true.
So there you go. Comments or there's no comment. There's no comment on this, right?
No, no, it is, it is, we have gotten to, I mean, it was interesting in your soliloquy, you talked a little bit about the idea of bringing the social back to media. And, it's a responsibility that I think that we humans have not taken to very well. We are not terribly good at this whole truth and great, quality information out there, no matter who we're attributing it to.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that, and I really just loved this article that you wrote. I went through it, and I was trying to pull out key quotes, and then I was like, to hell with it. I just pulled out the whole article and I just stuck it in front of me, because I was like, I can't just find one thing to pull out. So we'll go
I'm
through that.
verbose that way, so
Oh, it was actually quite succinct. Not as succinct as Seth Godin's post, but a very close second. I'm not joking.
well,
But
that's high
first,
praise.
but first, let's get into some fun facts about adjunct professor Robert Rose. Embarrassing truths, not so embarrassing, but just I actually find these quite interesting about you, because there's this wonderful musical and creative side to you. I mean, you had a play on off Broadway. You
Did.
used to be the musical director of a cabaret show.
That's correct.
And you gave it all up to be a content marketing OG.
I did indeed. I mean, because one, what I found is that marketing pays better than the entertainment business for some reason. And paying rent was a good thing for me. And as fun as it was to tour around and do the musical cabaret and play music in bands and do those kinds of things, it just doesn't pay that well. So I found that getting into marketing, and I started my marketing career in the entertainment business, in the television business of all places, and yeah, it paid the rent. And I'm glad you put me next to Matthew Broderick there. I mean, because that's one of my favorite musicals there.
Yeah, isn't it great? And look, I mean, talk about business models. I've always said this. I sound like a broken record, but to this day, and for the life of me, I do not understand why in a Broadway show, at the end of a Broadway show, when they come on for their, curtain call and their bow, and potentially an encore, they don't say, now take out your cameras, take out your phones, and we're going to do a little number for you, and we want you to take photos, video, and put it on your social media channels and show everybody how awesome. Of course, I'm reframing this with a very deliberate narrative, but I don't understand why a business model and a business so dire in need, of revenue doesn't figure out that kind of content liberation solution.
It's an amazing question. I mean, and there are so many other examples of that as well. I mean, just recently, the Olympics, the PGA and the golf, and so many other industries that would benefit from just taking a moment to say, hey, this is the time, right? This is the time when we want you to, tell the story, help tell our story. And I mean, yours is a great idea, of course. They just taking a moment at the end of a curtain call to say, here's a little special thing just for you that we're going to do, and we want you to share it all over social media, would be an amazing thing. And this gets to your point of the soliloquy, which is we haven't learned how to do this yet. We haven't, here we are, whatever it is, 10 years if you want to really look at social media, and then 20 years if we want to look at digital. We haven't gotten very good at this yet. We're still, McLuhan said, I was reminded of McLuhan when you were going through your soliloquy about, the medium is the message and all of that. And we are so trained to put, what McLuhan used to call our old stereos, or our old eyeballs, our old perceptions onto media. For whatever reason, we still continue to have this idea of applying old paradigms to new formats, right? So, for example, we still call it web pages, right? We still call them ebooks. We still look at videos like television. We still look at social media pretty much like a message board that now contains images. And we have not really, as business proprietors and or as humans, really figured out how to do this in an interesting way, other than to just put more stuff out there.
Yeah, and actually one thing that I remember Joe saying from when he was on the show was kind of kill your content. Like this is a time to cull the content and kill the content, that, reduce it, take a moment to prioritize and focus on quality, over quantity. But Rob, let's go back to that for a second. This idea of we still haven't figured it out. I had an epiphany recently, which is why the Super Bowl is still the stupid bowl from a creative standpoint. Why haven't we figured out these things? And this was my reveal. This was my aha moment. It's a generational thing. It's the fact that people don't keep their jobs. It's the fact that there's no momentum. And so what happens is it's a constant revolving door. And really what organizations haven't figured out is continuity of IP and training, and the ability to say, here are all the mistakes we made. Don't make those mistakes again. And so what happens is you just have this Groundhog Day approach of companies, and thank God for that, because as you said, not only does marketing pay well, but marketing pays well, for the Content Marketing Institute, because they're never going to figure it out, and not as long as you're alive.
Yeah, right. Well, two things there. Marketing pays better. I'm not going to suggest that marketing pays well for a moment.
All right, thank you for
better
the
than busking
clarification
on the streets. So that's the clarification there. But you bring up a really good point, which is why hasn't this evolution really taken hold? And you can see it in the younger generation, right? The younger generation absolutely is leveraging all of this technology and all of the democratization of distribution of content and production of content, and doing incredible things from a content creator. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing this rise of the creator economy and what Joe would call, content entrepreneurs, which are people who can really leverage the media for, profit and for businesses, and quite frankly, biting the ankles of some of the bigger businesses. Going back to my old days in television, we used to have this, one of the things that was happening during the .com boom and everything was people wondering why television networks weren't evolving, into these over-the-top services or, those kinds of things. And exactly what you said was true, which is you had this older generation that looked at it and went, you know what? This is a 5 or 10 year transition for this industry. And I'm 5 years, 10 years away from retirement. Let the kid behind me handle this. And so many industries are like that, where you've got senior leadership and executives that are looking at this going, you know what? I can ride the train that we've been on, the classic advertising industrial complex, and I can ride this till I'm done. And quite frankly, then I'm done, and the kid behind me can actually figure this out. What we're in now, what has been really sped up over the last 18 months as the weirdness has been upon us, is the idea of the acceleration of this, the acceleration of the evolution of these digital and content experiences in business. And so those executives that were hoping to ride this out until 2025 or something like that, they're suddenly discovering, you're late. You need to do this now.
Now, I want to just add one more point on this, and before we move on, but you spoke about, the kid behind us, right? Whoever is behind us.
Yeah.
The second part of the epiphany is it becomes like, like the old saying goes, let me make sure that I have my same different day. That they come in, and not only do they make the same mistakes, but the connection is not there. Whether it's work ethic, whether it's lack of experience, it's not an age thing. But
No.
but to that end, right? You've got on the one end of the age range, I'm just trying to count down the days for retirement. But on the other end, you've got a lack of experience and a hunger in terms of being able to adopt, and adapt. And I've seen it as a teacher now, as a professor, setting up a Zoom, right? I teach asynchronously with one of the schools. And I set up a Zoom to do like a little mini masterclass with my students. And, I don't know, less than 25% of them showed. And I'm thinking, like, listen, I'm not saying I'm great and, God's gift or anything like that. But if you just did a simple little Google search on who I am and what I've done and what I've written, surely you would want to find 45 minutes to hang out and pick the brain of and learn from, right? And here I am teaching social media strategy. And, I'm not getting the, oh, what the hell would you know, old man? I'm getting the fact that these guys aren't even on Twitter and they're barely on Facebook. And I don't know that they necessarily even understand the power of Instagram. So it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition, which is, guess what? They still have a lot to learn, and I still can teach them.
Here's this is the part where I can say that age actually is a benefit here, which is one of the things that you're speaking to, which I think is really important, is this difference now in the world of skills versus wisdom. And for a long time, university, and school, and the idea, this is, even pre-internet, was about acquiring the knowledge that we needed to do the skills for the jobs that we wanted to do. And that was really what we spent our time doing. And as the internet and search primarily really changed the fundamental landscape of how we consume education, entertainment, inspiration, etc., I think what we've seen is this ability where you don't need to know things, or at least the perception is you don't need to know things, because quite frankly, I can just Google that up later. And what we've lost in so many ways, as universities, as classes, as businesses have tried to keep up with education, is there's still been this continuing focus on skills and knowledge. And really someone like you who is saying, listen, you need to understand the fundamentals, the wisdom, to have the experience to be able to apply these things in your life. And what has been lost a little bit in the younger generation is that visibility into wisdom, in the ability to have experiences that provide you not what to think, but how to think. I mean, that was, when I went to university, and graduated with an English literature degree, it wasn't so that I could become an English teacher, although I could regale you with the, similarities of Anna Karenina and content marketing. But the idea is that I learned how to think. I learned how to be curious. I learned how to go research things. I learned how to apply things in a way that was useful for me when I started to accumulate skills and knowledge and those sorts of things. And I think a lot of that is lost right now. And it's something, by the way, that I think there's a huge opportunity. I mean, I can go on a whole rant about universities, but for business, I think this is the opportunity for us to apply trusted experiences that develop our, audience's wisdom, that provides value in that way, that quite frankly is just missing in great swaths right now.
There's so much unbelievable, so many nuggets in what you said, and I will just say one thing about that, which is, as a teacher now, I'm mindful of the fact that my role is actually more as a mentor than as a teacher.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is to connect the dots all the time and say, and I go back to my own, which is I probably remember three things from my marketing, like three things, but I remember them well. One of them is the loyalty ladder, So so when I find something, I'm going to say, this is valuable, and here's why, and this is how you can apply it. So just to use your words, which I think are fantastic, it's not teaching them what to think; it's teaching them how to think. It is the what I call the WWYD. What would you do if you were running the show? If you were Burger King and you just put out that tweet that women belong in the kitchen on International Women's Day, what would you do? I'm not interested in what they did because they didn't do the right thing. What would you do?
Exactly. It's the skills that you can start to apply to life, right? I mean, one of the things that I think is so important, and it's one of the reasons that in the many workshops that I do, and I get teased for this. I mean, Pulizzi teases me all the time for this, is that I go back to classics, right? I go back when I first got into marketing, when I left being a, leader of a cabaret band and got into marketing, the first thing I did was immerse myself into the classics, right? Drucker and Theodore Levitt and and all of the classic marketing professors, and learned it and learned the classic basis of marketing practice, even though you sort of look at it today and go, well, you don't really put the 4 P's into practice anymore, product, place, price, and promotion, but you really do. And it's that understanding that what they were providing in those in that sort of classic marketing education was a way to think, right? A framework for how to think, and not necessarily the facts and figures and stats and how to Google this and how to do keyword research and how to configure, your marketing automation solution and how to configure social media and how to do this. Those are all just skills. And, the example I often use is it's funny these days. When I was a kid, right, I never learned how to change the oil or do a carburetor on my, on an engine in a car. My dad knew how to my dad could take apart a car and put it back together again. And I never did, because I never had to, right? I never needed to know that, because quite frankly, cars worked, right? They just worked better than they did in the old days. And you didn't have to do that. You could just simply take it down and it was a service. The same thing is true in digital today, right? In the old days, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, we all had to learn HTML, and we had to learn how these things worked, and we had to know how the web worked, and we had to know how to take apart an FTP server and put it all back together again and do all those things. And we don't today. The stuff just works. And so we think of it as this configuration, this all we need to learn is how to configure things. But what we've lost in the process, what I lost in the process of not knowing how to take apart a car, was how a car works. And we don't know how the web works in many ways. And I think that's an opportunity. There's an opportunity there to understand the application of knowledge and that's differentiating, quite frankly, from an individual skill set perspective to, anybody. The classic thing today is be T-shaped, right? Be T-shaped in your idea, be broad and be deep in one area. But the key is that the T needs to have a little bit of depth as well. You need to know things. You need to know, broadly speaking, how to apply storytelling, wisdom, strategy, whatever it is, your word that you like, and apply that in a way that makes sense for the business. Because quite frankly, if your job is to configure software or to configure SEO or to configure social media and work that way, you are replaceable. You are replaceable by a robot or an AI or anything like that. And that's not a place you want to be in.
It's a fantastic point about the T needs to be deep, right? The tail of the T needs to go deep, in terms of roots and foundation.
Yeah.
The other point, of course, is the thing about a framework or the box, right, is if you want to think outside the box has to exist. And so,
Exactly. Yeah.
so now I want to touch on just one other skill, which is actually connected to your past as well.
Yeah.
Something that I think marketers need to have. And then with the time we have left over, talk about this terrific article that you wrote. But another fun fact about you, which I think is now it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Which is not only did you work, in a comedy club, right, being stage manager, but you actually got to, like, I mean, this is amazing. Seinfeld, Robin Williams, Roseanne, the great Sam Kinison. There's so much I could prompt you about in terms of the age of improv and pivoting and etc. But I'm not going to. Instead, I'm just going to ask you, what lessons did you learn from this experience that you have carried with you to, specifically in terms of that have shaped you as a professional today? And my second point is, what was Sam Kinison and Robin Williams like?
Well, I'll tell you the answer to both questions. So any skill that I bring to the table in terms of public speaking and my, the ability for me to speak on stage comes from that time. I mean, getting to observe those people and the way that they applied their craft. Stand-up comics have always been one of my biggest, admirations, right? I just have such admiration for what they do on a night by night basis. And so I love stand-up comics. And part of that was because I grew up in a stand-up comedy club and got to watch those great people. And the key was not only the stage presence and not only being able to improvise on the spot with hecklers or with, responding to the immediates, being in the moment, being present in that moment. It was also the level of preparation. And the level of preparation that they did. A lot is made of Seinfeld, for example, and the level of preparation that he puts into, every single word is scripted in the way he does his stand-up comic. He doesn't just make that stuff up. The way he emphasizes a word and the way, it's like a poetry. And to me, that is loving the language, and it's also loving the way that you communicate. And I think that's an incredibly important thing for us as marketers. It's an incredibly important thing for us as storytellers. And it's a really important lesson for us as public speakers or in any way, from teaching onward, right? I've pulled so much from that. To answer your second question, it was really amazing. I'll say this about Robin Williams was exactly as you think he was. I didn't get to spend a lot. He was a huge, of course, headliner when he appeared at the club I worked at for a number of years, and he would come in for what would happen is he would come in for a concert, somewhere at a big venue, and then he would come at the very last minute, like on a Saturday night, and do like a hour and a half or 2 hours set, just show up and do it. And he was incredibly gracious and incredibly funny, and just, he's exactly what you think of. And Kinison was a lovely, lovely, lovely man, and nothing like his public persona. He was a lovely man and a troubled man, I would say, and also absolutely nothing like his public persona. He was not a screamer in private.
I will not do my Sam Kinison impersonation right now, but I've heard that thought before, right? The idea of preparation and presence, right? We know that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, but this is a beautiful insight about preparation and presence in terms of a form and function approach. You also spoke about poetry. Well, we're going to soon have Kloud Nimbus on the show, who's going to perform some poetry. All the P's are popping at the moment. But here's some poetry that you wrote. You wrote an article called Truth is Trust. And this idea, of course, it's a beautiful thought of content, what I call content responsibility. I don't call it content responsibility. You call it content responsibility. Why brands now have not just an opportunity, but a responsibility for developing trust and truth in content. So you said a bunch of things in this. I just want to read the first little blurb and then hand it back to you. As marketers and content practitioners, we are not in the business of facts. Marketers should be in the business of truth. We tell stories. We are there to illuminate a greater truth. But there are two sides to that truth, light and dark. And I'll turn it over to you and also just say, curse you, Dr. Robert Rose, for revealing that, in fact, drinking Red Bull doesn't actually give me wings, which has deflated my whole life.
Is that surprising? I'm sorry. Is that a little like, well, I guess we shan't talk about Santa Claus then. You know, it's not a big secret that trust right now is at an all-time low, right? Edelman does their study every year, and then they find that, you know, that trust is at an all-time low. And, you know, certainly here in the US, you know, because of some other guy, right? You know, it's been a bit of a challenge. And, you know, this idea of where trust is right now and where truth is right now is a big challenge. And what Edelman found, of course, was that trust is at an all-time low, but business is actually the most trusted of institutions, right? Where government, media, even nonprofits are ranking lower than business right now in the levels of trust. This is, you know, we can have a lovely glass of Cabernet and talk about the opportunities that we have as a culture to change some of that. But more importantly, for marketing, it is now time for us to take that mantle. It is now time for us to take that opportunity to become the trusted source of interesting things for consumers, to become the thing that consumers can actually trust and find truth in. And to me, that is, you know, and look, I am an unabashed, unashamed marketing fanboy. I've grown up in marketing and I love marketing, and I have grown to absolutely love this practice. And no one will tell me any different, that it is not about hucksterism and it's not about trying to, you know, persuade people to do untoward things. What I believe sincerely is that we have an opportunity right now as businesses to change some of this, to lean into privacy, to lean into the idea of truth. In other words, shaping facts in a way that demonstrates evidentiary. I'm not suggesting that we make facts up. I'm suggesting that we present facts in a way that is compelling for people to believe in things that they can trust. And the idea of it really sort of comes to play in how we present information to consumers, right? Perfect example of this is I got the distinct pleasure of working with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a number of years ago. And they were trying to get trust with the public around a new form of education. And in the US, it's called Common Core, and it's a very divisive challenge. And I was sitting around a table with, 15 or 16 PhDs in education, which is intimidating enough. And they all had this big book of research, this big book of facts, 2-inch book of facts. And one of the PhD slammed that book down and said, "We should be able to win this argument. The facts are on our side." And I said, "How's that working out for you?" And they said, "Not that great." I said, "Right, because the opposition puts out a meme of a young girl crying, doing her homework and inconsolable in tears. That tells a story. It may or may not be true, but the fact is she's crying at the table, and they create truth and trust in the ability to create a narrative. You have to do the same thing. And today I would argue that it's not just an opportunity for differentiation, it is actually a responsibility. I believe that just as we do social corporate responsibility for the environment, for climate change, for diversity in the workplace, it is also our responsibility as businesses to create truth in media and trust in media, because we have the opportunity and, quite frankly, the responsibility to do exactly that.
I mean, that deserves the applause.
Well, yeah. And a self-interest.
I
By the way, there's a self-interest there, because if I'm the one who brings it to you, right? If I'm the company who brings it to you, then Good for me, because you'll like my brand better, right? You said it well. I don't want to have a relationship with a stick of butter. I don't want to have a relationship with a cup of coffee. I want to have a relationship with the people who are the cup of coffee. I want to have a relationship with the knowledge. I want to have a relationship with the story. Nobody wants to have a relationship with well, maybe some people want to have a relationship with Steven Spielberg or George Lucas, but everybody wants to have a relationship with Star Wars or E.T. or the movies they create. That's the key. Creating the value through the experience is what you want to have the relationship with. So if tomorrow GE decides to launch a nonprofit university, or Apple decides to launch a nonprofit university, or Starbucks decides to launch a national newspaper, or these brands start to do things that can create trust and truth in media and experiences for audiences, we as a public shouldn't skeeve out about that. We should be willing to look at that and say, is this something that we can actually get our hearts and heads around? Because there's the opportunity, because they don't need to monetize it in the same way that a television network does. And that's the opportunity I think we have.
And of course, the beauty of it is they can distribute Starbucks paper in Starbucks, which is fantastic.
Exactly. And they don't have to, it's a marketing program. One of the things that I challenged one of the insurance industry with is I said, how many insurance companies have stadium naming rights, right? In their local, and for their local city. And actually it was the one in Cleveland that there's Progressive Field there. And I said, it's the opportunity is for a rounding error on the stadium naming rights. You could support the local newspaper. You could become the exclusive sponsor of the local newspapers there and make sure that local news stays active and viable and journalism lives.
Or you could sponsor an emu. But that's but that's another story. So, who's the comedian now, buddy?
You could sponsor an emu. Right. Yeah. That's your tweetable
comedian?
moment, folks. That's your tweetable moment. Sponsor an emu.
Sponsor an emu. Inquire within. I'm creating an NFT of that moment as we speak. I want to leave us today though with a fantastic quote from this article. Our truth, which you've intentionally capitalized, our truth is then shaped by our deepening trust in what we see in our reality. Of course, the challenge there is two people can somehow see the same thing in very different realities. But we have our work to do. And the good news is with people like you, Dr. Robert Rose, we are in good hands. This has been way overdue. I'm not letting you off the hook yet, by the way, because there are a few other things that I want to share. But first, we're going to take a little break and we're going to go to our resident philosopher because it is Thursday night. I'm going to let you choose. Either we're going to go with On Philosophy or Tolstoy's Questions.
What was the first one?
On Philosophy. So I guess it's Tom Morris On Philosophy. So do you want a which one?
I'm feeling a little nihilistic tonight, Joseph. So I think we need to go with Tolstoy.
Let's do it.
Hey, everybody. After spending about a month reading Tolstoy's great novels, Anna Karenina and War and Peace, which is even bigger, I've been enjoying recently some of his longer short stories or novellas like The Death of Ivan Ilyich, The Happy Family, and The Cossacks. In each of these shorter stories, a character is thrown into the social structures of the world in their day and learns to be successful within those structures, with their many pressures and expectations, until something happens and he or she is led to reflect on the path so far traveled so well. Have I been going where I want to go, living as I choose to live? What's the meaning of it all anyway? Why am I doing any of this? What do I want from life? What's truly important and what's not? Tolstoy's quite a writer, and when you read a stretch of his amazing stories, one after the other, you get to a point where you can't avoid asking some of these same questions yourself. Am I just marching along on the orders of other people? Am I moving downstream simply because there's a current? Or am I making my own choices based around what I think is meaningful and important? I think philosophical questions like these are vital for all of us to ask now and then, and to ask boldly, to ask courageously, and answer for ourselves. And if other people think that's just odd, well, blame me, or better yet, blame Tolstoy. He can take it. But in any case, keep philosophizing.
So there's your Anna Karenina little
How about that?
tip. You chose well.
Well, it's the funny thing is that so I do come with that English lit background, and I always joke at the end of my my workshops that they can at the end at the workshop I basically say I'll send you a copy of my book, or I'll send you a copy of Anna Karenina, because it's basically the same thing. It's ostensibly the same lesson to be learned, and I think that was a great a wonderful lesson that we could learn, that Tom helped us with there.
Well, I would, I would choose this book. I would choose Killing Marketing. If you want to stay connected with Robert, there are a bunch of ways you can do that. One is to buy Killing Marketing, how innovative businesses are turning marketing cost into profit. You can, the reason why I called him the humble prophet is because he didn't want to promote anything. So I just went and dug up stuff to promote. He actually gave me a meh. I just want to have a good conversation, which I hope we did today. But you can find out more about him and his practice at contentadvisory.net. And probably most importantly, go and subscribe to This Old Marketing, which has nothing to do with the people, but subscribe to Robert and Joe's terrific podcast, This Old Marketing, and you can get that at This Old Marketing. By the way, I noticed the word sold. You put the sold in old marketing, my friend.
Yeah.
That's another one. Hang around in the background and come back when Kloud is finished, and we'll have a little chat with her. It's been an absolute pleasure, Robert.
Lovely.
All right, and now it's time to bring on Kloud Nimbus, and we're going to do that right away, or I hope she is ready. She looks ready. Let's bring her on. Kloud, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine.
How
Kloud,
are you?
you are a creator, you are a poet, you are a singer. You are going to be performing two poems, Leave Me Lonely and Moonlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and just let you do your thing.
Okay, so the first poem that I am going to perform is called Leave Me Lonely. Hello, everyone. My name is Kloud, and welcome to my clouded mind. Lately, I've been understanding that you're bad for me. The late night conversations where I take you on game for game has only left me falling for you hopelessly. As if your voice hasn't become my favorite song, I wouldn't say I'm addicted, because if I am, I'd have to cut you off. And next time that I play you, I'm hoping that my record doesn't skip. You have me questioning your motives when we're alone. Like, is it love if I can easily say goodbye? But is it if I'm trying to figure out where exactly I stand? Lately, it's been having me feeling toxic, as if this miscommunication can't stand the test of time. Le sleur zelf naar mij. Waarom probeer ik het eigenlijk? Maybe it's a mistranslation, seeing as how we go back and forth in different worlds, and I'm not saying that I feel trapped, but you have me feeling like, if you walk out that door, don't you come back no more, 'cause my heart has had enough of this give and take. And as much as I'd like you to stay, you're a dangerous love. Darling, you're no good for me, baby. 'Cause if you're gonna let me and leave me hanging here, then I'd rather you leave me lonely. Because that's how it's starting to feel when I talk to you. I feel alone, and even though it hurts, I stick around, and I don't think that's love. And that's my poem, Leave Me Lonely. And I'm going to end this on...
By the way, just had to bring the air horn. I'm going to disappear again, and as soon as you're done, Robin and I will come back and just gush on how amazing that was. So back to you.
No problem with me. All right, and this poem, I'm going to leave us on a sweeter note, is called Moonlight. And yes, hello everyone. My name is Cloud. Welcome to Cloud 9. We met at night. The moon was high, and so was I, and I could see it in his eyes. So full, beautiful, almost as beautiful as he was. The moon kissed his skin as if it was illuminating solely for him. I would be lying if I said I wasn't jealous. I would love to leave chocolate kisses along his jawline, reminding him of every time I fell for him. I could see my future in his eyes, his voice speaking to my soul, undressing me and leaving me naked every time he spoke. I felt exposed. But who wouldn't love to be left fully exposed under the full moon? His hands wrapping around me, exploring places I only heard about in stories, but I let him take me because I felt liberated off his glory. When he kissed me, I felt intoxicated off his touch. As I begged for him to take what he needed but leave my soul, I felt him taking everything I had to offer, leaving my soul as bare as trees in the winter, planting his seed, giving me new life, moon after moon. I transformed before him through the process of taking him in and giving him a new form of release through every hole. I felt him pour into me as the sun pours into the moon until it's full again, leaving images of us dancing in his moonlight. And that's my poem.
There we are. Well, first of all, I'm just going to make one comment and then I will turn it over to Robert. When we were chatting, you said, should I sing or should I read poetry? And I was amazingly surprised that you ended up doing both in the same. And I love that effect because, I've had so many poets and spoken word artists, on the show, but you did that so beautifully.
Thank you. I've actually been singing since I was like 5 years old. So I don't really showcase my singing that much. But lately I've been feeling more secure in my poetry, and I'm like, okay, let's add some singing into it. Let's throw it in there. And I like what I've been coming up with. And, that's the most important part. But I really like that it also gives others the chance to get to know a different side of me through not just my poetry, but also an art that I work so hard on.
And it differentiates you. Robert, what did you think?
Well, it was Cloud. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I wonder if you would share what struck me about both poems were how sort of they were two ends of a spectrum, right? It was the first one so interesting and sad in many ways, and the second one so joyous and soul filling. And I wonder what made you choose to go to do that.
Okay, so both of these poems are inspired off of songs by Ariana Grande.
Ah.
I'm a huge fan of hers. So when I wrote Moonlight months ago, and I was just like, wow, like, because I love the moon, as you could tell, like from my thing in the background. I love the moon. I love the moon in all its phases. So I was like, how about writing a poem about loving somebody and seeing them in like your favorite place, which would be under the full moon, you know? And then for Leave Me Lonely, I was like feeling hurt by like someone's actions. And I was like, I'm going to write a poem about it. And I was listening to this song and I was just like, yeah, this is just how I'm feeling. And I was just like, how can I mix these two worlds perfectly, like blend them together? And I think I did a good job.
It's a whole story. It's a whole, you told a whole story with both those poems. And I'm glad you did it in the order you did it, because it, you know, it's the happy ending, right? Not the sad
Yeah,
ending.
that's the most important part.
Yeah.
And I think Robert was probably thinking, like I was, that these are two tales from your past, personal connection to love and love lost. And you're like, nope, actually it was inspired by Ariana Grande. So, I mean, she inspires me too, as do you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love her. She's great.
The other thing that's so interesting, going, and we spanned generations talking about Sam Kinison and Robin Williams, and now, emerging budding talent in you, that there is this idea of feeling comfortable in your skin. And it is a confidence, it is a self-confidence, it is a self-awareness. It's probably one of the most important things that is a red thread, little Tamsin Webster hat tip there to our friend, our previous guest on the show, to this idea of finding yourself in life and being secure in who you are. And so I just wanted to mention that, and I'm really glad that you came on. And that you felt comfortable enough to share this beautiful hybrid form of your art.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me in your space.
Well, one of the things I saw, by the way, is that you've been in competitions and and etc. Like, tell us what's next for you, what you got planned coming up in the months and ahead.
All right, so I'm relatively new to everything that I'm doing right now. Like, I just started sharing my poetry with people in July, and then I started performing my poetry outside in August. And I was like, this is something that I've always wanted to do through music, because music is my first love. And I'm currently a college student, so I'm working on getting my degree in music production. I'm writing a poetry book. I'm just putting myself out there right now. Like, and also, like, I'm in the running for I'm nominated for 3 categories in the Poetry Gala thing, which is the picture that you keep showing. So I'm nominated for 3 categories there, and I'm just hoping for the best in life,
You are putting yourself out there, and that's key. Robert and I were discussing college. More students need to do exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
I'm just throwing myself into it.
As Brene Brown would say, you're putting yourself into the arena. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a great place to be.
Well, I have to say, a great place to be is Joseph Jaffe is not famous, especially on a Thursday night. This has been a gift for me, tonight's episode, the show in general, but certainly tonight's episode. Finally hanging out with you, Robert, and I hope we'll do it again very soon. And meeting you, Kloud. Please stay connected to the show. And if you want to subscribe to the show's channel, all you have to do is go to my YouTube channel or go to bit.ly/subscribe to the show. That is all we have time for. But I would be remiss if I didn't go to Chuck Norris to ask him what he thought about Dr. Robert Rose and the emerging Kloud Nimbus.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. And I'll be back next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
You as well.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.